The best of the week on Relevant Radio.
What are we seeing? There's the Institute for Family Studies, great organization. Dr. Brad Wilcox has been a great friend of the show for years. We're going to be joined in a minute by Grant Bailey, who's a research fellow at that same institute. And you can find them, by the way, if you want to check them out. They're ifstudies.org. The Institute for Family Studies, they did the study. Let's check these numbers out. I want to throw a few of them at you, and then we can talk about it. And I want to hear from you, too. High school dating. Go back to high school. Remember how many? You remember high school and how, dating was so common, right? At least I was go back to my own high school. It's fallen by 50% since the 1980. Since 1980s or 1980, I think it was the number they had. High school dating has fallen 50% since 1980. In 2024, just months ago, if you think about it, a mere 46% of high school seniors reported ever going out on dates. Ever going out on dates. That to me is just stunning. Okay, so dating might have fallen. Maybe it's not in frequency, right? But almost 1 out of 2 high school seniors never have gone out on a date. That's when you really start to, I don't know, that whole world opens up for you, doesn't it? And I've got some theories on it. As I said, Grant will be able to unpack this for us, but let that number sink in, 1 out of 2. What are you seeing in your own family? What are your kids? Are your kids dating? Are they not? Less than half of seniors in high schools have ever been on a date. So I don't know. When I was younger, I don't know how it was with you. Maybe it was more common, but dating it could be awkward, right? It could be clumsy, sometimes even awkward or painful, but that was normal. Guys didn't necessarily want to go up and ask a girl out. It took some courage to do that. What's changed? What has changed? What's your sense of this? A couple things I see here. I think we're living in a polarized world, right? We got polarized values. Young men and women increasingly see life and really each other differently. They look at the world through different lenses. I mean, look at politics. Look at faith. Look at identity. I mean, I didn't have to deal with politics or even identity back then. It wasn't an issue for me. Even expectations about marriage and family. This gap, I think, is getting wider. And then you've got this challenge I didn't have to deal with, this technology, all these dating apps. I say to my wife all the time, thank God these apps were not around in our day where you swipe left or you swipe right? These dating apps promise connection, but what happens? They deliver by comparison, as we've known from a lot of studies have been out there, anxiety and really unhappiness, endless swiping. And that, it was interesting because they said instead of building courage, by having all these opportunities out there, it can build paralysis. And why? Well, because the risk of rejection in real life, is much greater than when you're online and you can swipe left or right. A lot of other things, too. We can get into them with Dr. Wilcox right now. There's the family factor. A lot of Gen Z people grew up with broken families. They've seen divorce and a whole litany of other problems. Dr. Grant Bailey, as I said, is a research fellow at the Institute of Family Studies. Doctor, welcome. Good to have you with us.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. And I've been working closely with, Dr. Brad Wilcox. So it's great to hear that he's been on before and, hopefully I can fill his shoes.
No, you're going to be great. I'm really looking forward to this. I find this topic absolutely interesting and really revealing. 46%. That's the number that the the Institute of Family Studies came up with. 46% dating rate among seniors in high school compared to previous generations. What's going on? What are you guys finding and why?
Yeah, I mean, this was a shocking finding for us because we originally set out, we knew that there was some sort of dating problem going out there. And so the Institute for Family Studies and this group, the Wheatley Institute, did a survey for 22 to 35-year-olds saying, okay, how's dating going? And at the same time, we were looking at this one survey, which has been going on since 1976, Monitoring the Future Study, which asks high school seniors, just a range of questions: alcohol, drug use, whether they're dating, what their hopes are for marriage, their political views, all these different things. And it was just shocking. It lined up perfectly. But we found that just a dramatic decline in the share of high school seniors who have ever gone out on a date. So we were sort of thinking about this when you think about like 80s movies. People are dating around. They really highlight the awkwardness of the high schooler experience, but there's something really representative about these movies. There was a lot of stuff going on in the high schooler's life, a lot of romantic aspirations. But when you look at movies today that look at, say, Never Have I Ever. I don't watch these shows, but I've consulted with people who have seen them. They show the same sort of thing of a lot of romance going on, but it's just not representative anymore. So, I think we should touch on all those points. You brought up a lot of really relevant points, but I think this is just a part of a broader trend of young adults, high school seniors, and into your 20s and 30s of a sort of social withdrawal. People are just not going out and doing social things anymore. And this dating aspect is just one element, one expression of the social, retreat, if you will. There's just a number of metrics out here that I can talk about them, but that's what we really think, that the dating is just, it's a symptom of a much deeper problem.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, Nick and I were talking about that. Nick, maybe open your mic too, if you don't mind. I want to tap into the conversation we had before the show, because we were talking about marriage rates going down, but we were also talking about like premarital sex, right? Nick, you want to make the point that you made to me? I thought it was a pretty good one.
Oh, sure. Well, as Catholics, we believe, sex is reserved for marriage. So, you like to see, that it's a good thing when rates go down like that. But it's like a good thing for the wrong reason, because if it means that, kids aren't hanging out, that's also not a good thing either, that kids are isolated from each other.
So you see these numbers go down. I thought that was really an important point that Nick brought up. And why? Because I said to Nick, he says, well, it's probably socialization. They're not going out anymore. They're doing everything digitally, online. They're connecting virtually. And as I was saying about this smartphone technology, you're swiping left, you're swiping right. You're doing this. You're making your Facebook and Instagram posts. You're doing all those different things. Speak to that if you could, Doctor, because I think new technology. I didn't have this technology when I was in high school. But I think it's really transforming kids on a number of levels, socially and even psychologically.
Yeah, I think, I'll just one point on we've sort of dubbed it, or others have, the sex recession. And again, sort of, we look at, married sex and then unmarried sexual activity, and people can get the idea that we think, we want that. But we're also looking at a huge decline in alcohol consumption. Wow. And we were writing a piece, and we were going to bring that in, and we didn't want people to think that we were happy that, that we were lamenting that people were not, high schoolers weren't drinking as much alcohol, or they were partying in that way less. But it is a symptom of a deeper thing. And, at our institute, we have a few initiatives. We have the Get Married initiative, because we think marriage is so important for individual flourishing and for society as a whole. But we also have the Family First Technology initiative, where we look at, what does technology look like in the family? And we've just been seeing just a remarkable effect of technology on this rising generation. So to the sort of point of explaining the dating recession, we saw just massive declines in the share who say they visit friends weekly compared to the 1980s. The share of people who say they go to parties monthly compared to the 1980s. But we've seen a huge increase in the share of young adults who say that they spend at least an hour of daily leisure time alone. It went from 43% in the 1980s up to 75%. So young adults are just spending a lot of time alone, and they're doing so on these sort of, it's called social media, but in a real way, it's an asocial activity. It's watching other streamers. It's not actually engaged in genuine community building, friendship building. And I think we can get to this point, but there is an issue of all these ideas that are being instilled in young adults through their social media. We see a lot of partisanship among high schoolers, and this all kicked off following 2010 to 2015. When we look at these charts, all these changes are dramatically happening over this period of 2010 to 2020. So,
That's
for instance, when we look at the dating recession, it's like when you look at the share of high school seniors who go on dates, it's pretty stable through the 1970s, 1980s. It starts to go down into the 90s and the 2000s. But once you hit 2010, it just collapses. And that aligns with the research that we've seen from Jonathan Haidt's, Jean Twenge, Jonathan Haidt calls this the great rewiring, where childhood has totally changed because it's become less physical and more digital. And so, kids aren't getting the socialization they need to go meet people, but then also when they're in those rare social situations, they don't have the practice anymore of going out and asking someone or reading social cues. So it all just builds on each other.
Grant, thanks for being here. I got to leave it there. That's my closing bell. I appreciate your perspective and your time today.
Thank you, Drew.
I'm out of time. We can always revisit this. If you missed any of it, download the app. Until we talk next time, God bless.
That was the Best of the Week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the Best of the Week is on the Relevant Radio app. Free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.